Hello, how are you all? Welcome. Let's get to the big news. Greetings to Ruth, first comment of the day. And well, let's get to the details. Let's talk about what's happening at the Pentagon since they're announcing a final blow is coming. They're saying this points to them already having control of the conflict. Could this be true? Who controls the Strait of Hormuz right now? Let's talk about what's happening in that area and how it's affecting the world. Let's go over several details about what's happening in the world, what's going on, and most importantly, where this conflict is heading and other matters. Also, the international situation, what's happening in Ukraine, what's happening in the Gulf countries, and what's going on in the United Kingdom, which is also facing another challenge with Russia. We're going to talk about several topics, obviously. Thank you, we're live, so go ahead and like, share, and let us know if the audio is good, if the video looks good, and if the stream is working properly. We appreciate your comments. Let's get into the details, starting with this image. This would be one of the images of the day, and according to reports, this is on the RW Mashkin Highway. This is in the northeast of Iran. According to reports, a series of attacks took place today, but it's not clear exactly what was targeted. But well, this is what can be seen. Images of different attacks in Iran are starting to circulate and be shared. Also, another image that stands out is this one. Let's see if we can show it. It's this image. Let's play it a little while we talk about it. This is a propaganda image released by the Iranians in which they send a message to the United States soldiers as if saying they're ready to receive them. And well, they send the classic image of multiple actions: parachuting, climbing mountains, desert, snow, water, a bit of everything. No urban warfare, no, as if saying they're ready for any situation. Well, it's part of the messages that the Iranians are sending at the same time. Well, there's a message from Donald Trump. He says the following. Let's listen.
We will go to their rescue, but they will never come to ours, and I want you to remember that we said this. They did not come to our rescue. Now everyone wants to help. When they are annihilated, when the other side is annihilated, they said we'd love to send ships. In fact, a couple of them made a statement saying, we want to get involved when the war is over. No, you're supposed to get involved when the war is starting or even before it starts. We had the United Kingdom saying we will send, this was 3 weeks ago, we will send our aircraft carriers, which, by the way, are not the best aircraft carriers. They're toys compared to what we have, but we'll send our aircraft carrier when the war is over.
And the thing is,
that's wonderful. But don't bother. We don't need it, and we don't need it, and we don't need them. We estimate.
We don't need them, says Trump. Well, what's happening here is that nobody wants to enter this area, including the United States. I mean, nobody wants to enter this region. Donald Trump sends this strong message against the NATO countries for not supporting the offensive by the United States and Israel against Iran. The president said he was disappointed, and at one point he even mentions the United Kingdom. As you could see, they claim that they don't need anything from NATO, which would mark an increasingly isolationist stance, the political pressure. And even though it sounds like we don't need it, the truth is Trump has been very upset because he feels that the 20-something countries in the alliance, they simply weren't interested in the conflict. They weren't interested in getting involved, partly because first they weren't notified, and second because of the way they've been treated. Trump makes and issues an ultimatum in which he says that Iran has to agree to negotiate the deal, warning that it has to be negotiated soon. We're going to talk right now about the details, about what is known. What does Pakistan say about this? Because Pakistan is the intermediary, the one in the middle, supposedly, right? And, well, there is already a response. It's very interesting what's been happening in these last moments, but it's a series of constant messages of changes, even within the same press conference. For example, here in this press conference, one of the ones that took place, wait, was this yesterday's or the day before yesterday's? At minute 12:03, I mean, during the entire press conference about the Iran issue, Donald Trump tells the reporters that he wants a ceasefire. At minute 12:03 to minute 12:05, he says that he declares victory over Iran, that he has already won. But at minute 12:07, he announces that they are going to send more Marines. A couple of minutes later, he says, but there are no Marines setting foot in Iran. Okay. But at minute 12:11, he says that he doesn't want a ceasefire. At minute 12:16, he says that he declares victory again. At minute 12:17, he says that he wants a ceasefire. But at minute 12:29, he says that Iran has been starting with a ceasefire. In other words, they started. Oh no, sorry, Iran is begging. He says 16, Iran is begging for a ceasefire. They are begging for a ceasefire at minute 12:36. He says that if oil goes up to $500, that's a good thing, that it won't be bad for the United States. Obviously, that's not true. And then he says at minute 12:37 that he demands the Strait of Hormuz be opened. And at minute 12:40, he says it's not a war, that it's not a conflict, right? And then at 12:42, he declares victory over Iran again. And that's basically almost every press conference you see that you attend constantly, right? Contradictory messages in the sense that, well, if you won the war, then who controls the Strait of Hormuz? If you won the war, why do you want troops inside the territory? If there's a ceasefire, then why are more soldiers still being sent? Well, there are too many contradictions in too little time, but it's so chaotic and so full of data and information. On one side and on the other, it's like, well, a bit confusing many times, especially for American citizens who only follow this kind of comments, right? And with that, it's like they take for granted that what was said there is the whole truth. And well, at least we could say that it's part of the reality, at least from Trump's point of view, right? A very strange reality because, well, on one hand, he wants to negotiate, but on the other hand, he already won. Well, you already won, so what's there to negotiate? Or is it's kind of strange, isn't it? And then now in some of the other press conferences, the ones that go on for a long time, doesn't he start falling asleep? Don't the American media start calling him Sleepy Trump, like Sleepy Joe? Do you remember Biden, who also used to fall asleep? Well, part of what happens in those moments is also observed, right? This would have been in Nuevo Leon. According to what is reported on Twitter, Yadid Valdez's account is not there. It shows a meteor over there. There it is. That's the meteor that would have passed here in Nuevo Leon, according to the reports. Well, lately there have also been a lot of, let's say, a lot of videos showing meteorite falls, fireballs. Most of them disintegrate in the atmosphere, but they do attract attention. There has been a lot of activity in that sense. Let's also go to the next image. No, this would be, well, una posible alien. Let's go to that. We begin to see the visit of the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, who would be with the Gulf countries. This visit will be crucial for the future, not only of the Gulf, of the Middle East region, but also for Ukraine. In the end, the aid that will be given is specifically for the biggest problem they have right now, which is the Shahed 136 drones, which they have not been able to control. They continue to arrive in significant numbers to the Gulf countries. And, well, it has put global oil, the price of global oil, in check. According to reports, President Zelensky said that in Saudi Arabia he will meet with Saudi officials to expand cooperation, specifically in terms of security between these two countries. He will be with other Gulf countries and they will be there. And so, they are not only agreeing on the possibility of selling weapons from Ukraine, just think about it, from Ukraine to the Middle East, but also to provide advice so they know how to react to these types of weapons, which are very disruptive because they are very cheap, very easy to build. They are produced in significant quantities, and that gives them considerable range. We remember that the design of the Shaheds has been so successful that the Pentagon itself created a copy of the Shahed. We've already mentioned that here. It's called Luca. By the way, no, and well, it's a drone with exactly the same design, at least on the outside. It's a copy, a clone, as they call it, because it's been effective since, yes, you destroy one of these kamikaze drones. But what if 100 come? That's the issue Arab countries face now. They're arriving in large numbers. even though they say, well, that they've already won. Well, in what sense? What do they call winning? I mean, it's a very complicated issue. And well, right now they're already reporting that in Iraq, right? There are also movements happening, I mean, attacks. In this case, that's what you see there in the background. According to the reports, it would be an attack on positions of the Popular Mobilization Forces, which are in Iraq, a neighboring country of Iraq. The same Iraqi government, which, by the way, is allied with the United States. Well, they already told them that they did give them permission to respond to the attack, meaning that they could also attack either Israel or the United States. And in these last few days, there have been attacks by the United States, apparently also by Israel. That would need to be confirmed, but they have been attacking each other and have eliminated important group leaders. Yes, or suddenly they went after that group, and that has obviously caused reactions. And is Iraq looking for stability? Because, well, those groups are inside and the groups take sides and say, well, then you defend yourselves. No, it's not that the Iraqis are going to go help them, but they say you can defend yourselves if you want to. We won't do anything to you if that happens since you're being attacked. Well, part of what has been happening, there are also moments, well, there are countries and places that are taking it with humor. Check out this image of a prank they're doing. I don't know which country in Saudi Arabia it was, but anyway, this little joke has been going around. Especially now that you hear these sounds of drones approaching and, well, someone puts a speaker with the sound of a drone coming. And, well, this is the reaction. They were already getting their phones out to record. We all know the usual people who are always there filming, right? I mean, when you hear a drone, in theory, the logical thing would be to take cover and avoid getting hit by the drone, right? But clearly, well, there are a lot of people who prefer to go record the drone, assuming that maybe they won't be attacked, right? So, as you saw, they quickly went out with their phones to record the drone attack. This, according to what they say, is in Saudi Arabia. From what I'm seeing here, it's in Saudi Arabia. But, well, you know, humor is always present before anything else. Hey, there's a really serious topic. Would this individual have been eliminated? He is a commander of the Revolutionary Guard Navy. His name is Alireza Tangsiri. That's the part, let's say, if there have been any achievements, it's been in eliminating Iranian leaders. In that regard, it has to be acknowledged that it's the most, let's say, successful part, so to speak, not from a military point of view. The thing is that, well, yes, a lot of leaders are being eliminated. Iran has accepted it in that sense, but what is clear is that the structure, and as Tulsi herself said, not the same director of intelligence over there in the United States. She said that, well, the structure, I mean, the government itself hasn't been touched. I mean, the regime remains as it is. It's weakened, but it hasn't been, I mean, let's say the regime isn't shaking. Even so, let's see, well, obviously, who is this individual? I'm sure they'll report Israel is the one that manages to take down Alireza Tangsiri, the naval commander of Iran's Revolutionary Guard. He would be the main strategist. He would be the one in charge of blocking the Strait of Hormuz. I mean, if anyone has created the formula to control the Strait of Hormuz, it's been this individual. That's why the attack is important. What does it mean if they open the Strait of Hormuz? That's why, well, no, because I insist their structure is that they already have the substitutes ready. So in case these people are eliminated, the next one is already lined up and so on, right? His death is a direct blow to Iran's maritime strategy. According to reports, Iran had restricted the passage of ships to countries allied with the United States, Israel, which is currently being watched. There are movements from some countries like Thailand, for example, apparently Pakistan as well, that are already managing to get through there. In other words, there are oil tankers that are indeed passing through. They come to an agreement with Iran. It seems they pay them a couple of $1 million, $2 or $3 million, and with that they can pass through without any problems, without risk. So apparently 8 or 9 ships are passing through daily, but only to countries, I insist, that are allies of Iran, or at least not allied with the United States or Israel. There are some countries that have permission, so to speak, to pass through. And all of this, well, that's part. No ships have been reported damaged by drones either, and the risk of mines continues in the area. The ultimatum expires tomorrow. I mean, the ultimatum is already Friday, right? Or would the last ultimatum expire tomorrow? In which either the Strait of Hormuz is completely opened, or in theory, there would be troops on the ground. Let's talk about what it is, what the Pentagon is thinking, because there's an idea that the final blow is coming. According to this, let's get into the details. Let's see what's going to happen.
They will go with the right people. Remember I mentioned a gift? Steve, can I reveal the gift?
You're free to do exactly what you want. Thank you very much for everything.
They said. To show you that we are real and solid and that we are there, we are going to let you have 8 oil tankers, 8 ships, 8 big oil tankers. This was 2 days ago and they will set sail tomorrow. That was 3 days ago, and I didn't give it much importance. And then I saw.
Well, it says Donald Trump, and wait, because it takes a little while to. Basically, what it says is that he's talking to someone inside Iran with whom he's negotiating, and he says, like, to show that I'm serious, here's a gift for you. 8 ships are going to be able to pass, he tells him at first, and then he says, go, and supposedly 8 Pakistani ships pass, and in the end, they send 2 more that also pass. So 10 Pakistani ships in total. They would have taken out oil without any problems, right? And that, according to him, was a gift. I mean, the Iranians said that's a gift. So you can see that if there's a negotiation, if there's a possibility of a deal, that's what Trump says. Maybe he's right, maybe not, because here there are obviously 2 different games, and it's a game of poker. It's not a game of poker. In which, well, it's hard to know exactly to what extent they're telling the truth or not. And above all, because, well, it's already been discovered many times, it's not what they say or it's not accurate. And besides, within the Iranian regime, there are strong divisions. So that's also, well, it's part of what's going on. Now, the Pentagon has the idea that the final blow is coming. The Pentagon, they say, is already preparing, since supposedly tomorrow is the end of the ultimatum poll, which starts on Saturday. But this coming weekend, in theory, things will intensify. If no agreement is reached, the Pentagon is preparing military options for a possible so-called final blow, in quotes, because they don't say exactly what it is. But what they do say is that at the very least, the number of bombings would increase massively, according to them. And also the likelihood of using ground forces. That's the controversial part, because it's already a war with little support from the people. In the United States, it started at 27. It has been decreasing. 27% of the population in the United States has been decreasing. As the issue progresses, the operation would be considered, I mean, the troops, if the ongoing diplomacy fails. At this moment, there is indirect dialogue, supposedly through Pakistan. Oman no longer wanted to get involved. Egypt didn't want to get involved either. Pakistan is supposedly the country, and Pakistan confirms it. So the Pakistanis have already confirmed that indeed there is indirect dialogue. How much of an indirect dialogue is it at this point? Very little, honestly, but well. If Iran keeps the Strait of Hormuz blocked, the United States says it has justification for a more aggressive military action. Although Donald Trump at the same time declares that he has already won, well, the beautiful strait. No, it's not just that Iran controls it, but Iran decides who can pass and who can't. How much do they have to pay when they pass? This would show that, well, it's not exactly a win-win either, right? Yes, they have eliminated many leaders who have practically affected the entire naval infrastructure, the big one, the ports, and so on. But aside from that, saying that it was a victory is very complicated. Yesterday, the New York Times confirmed that practically all the bases in the Middle East are affected or destroyed. So does that mean that right now the Gulf soldiers, the United States soldiers, are living in hotels? Huh? So things are going to be a bit complicated for the weekend. No, in theory, this isn't decreasing, it's actually escalating. And yesterday we saw the number of drones there are or that have been launched in recent days. Let's quickly look at the last few days. That's today's estimate, but this isn't over. But if you look at the last 10 days, well, there have been quite a few drones. Come on, the number of drones and missiles hasn't decreased in the last 10 days. Here are the missiles from the last 10 days, and that's also a significant number. It's not the hundreds of missiles that were launched at the beginning, but it's still a number that hasn't decreased, that practically hasn't gone down since the start of the conflict, right? So, well, according to them, they have a lot more short-range missiles than people think. That's what they claim, but who knows, right? The point is, let's also look at what Turkey says. Listen to this.
Look, from here, with a bleeding heart, I ask you, for the love of God, what's the difference between the tears shed in Isfahan, Tabriz, and Tehran, and those that are shed in Erbil, Amman, Baghdad, Beirut, Sana'a, Doha, Riyadh, and in the other sister cities of our region? What's the difference in the eyes of the network of massacres whether our name is Ali, Murtaza, Omer, Aisa, Zeynep, Hassan, or Hussein?
A very important message, the one from Erdogan, because Erdogan's strategy has been not only to appear neutral, so to speak, but even close and even favorable to the Iranians. Even though he has his differences and whatever you want, clearly what he's saying is, well, we are the same, we are brothers, right? He says at one point, this is our area. It's like it's our territory, right? He was saying in his conversation there, I mean, no, he hasn't wanted to fall into this because there were three, I think it was in the end, 3 missiles launched from Iran toward Turkey. And despite that, he even went so far as to suggest that they weren't even from Turkey, that they weren't from Iran. But rather, who knows? I mean, he wasn't going to fall into that game of trying to pit Turkey against Iran. And his messages are constantly more like not really supportive in themselves, but more like saying we're basically the same and criticizing the war, right? He is the NATO member most against this conflict, maybe along with Spain. And watch out, Spain's position has been defended by several European leaders, including the British Prime Minister himself. So Spain is not as alone as it might seem in its position against the war. In other words, several of the main NATO countries have said that, well, they don't want to get involved. Not with the same forcefulness that Pedro Sanchez has shown against the war, though. But they've kind of given him their support, haven't they? So that also draws attention because the more Trump says no, that he doesn't want to help NATO, I don't know. Well, yes, in fact, they say they won't help. I mean, we don't want to be in that conflict. It's not our conflict. They didn't invite us. They didn't even let us know because in the end, well, they should have said, hey, get ready, have your oil reserves, arm yourselves. I mean, nothing. I mean, this looks pretty bad because at the end of the day, you can't do something like this. It affects your economy and it affects your security. European countries, well, they have a lot of ties with the Arab community. Well, within European countries, there's a large Arab community. And this right from the start has a huge impact on them, right? So this is not seen in a good light by Europeans at all. Now, in all of this, Donald Trump not only gets upset with NATO, but he also implies something. Well, yes, that this is probably the weakest point they've had with NATO at this moment. A topic that, well, must fit very well with Vladimir Putin's idea of weakening NATO. Couldn't that move even turn out very favorable for Vladimir Putin? That's a separate topic. Let's move on to other important matters. What you see there is from Iran, the view they have from Iran towards what is Bandar Abbas. In fact, that's the coast. And it says in an announcement at the end of the video, you can see the sign for the port of Bandar Abbas or the coast of Bandar Abbas. There it is. That's the moment. What you see back there, what's in the background. That's not a city. What's in the background? Are those the ships, as they say, lined up? Or are those the oil tankers waiting for permission to pass? There's Bandar Abbas. Well, that part, let's say, of what's happening right now, this area, this place, Bandar Abbas, is an area close to the passage in the Strait of Hormuz. These ships are lined up there waiting to be able to pass to either transport oil, gas, or helium, which is obviously something that draws attention. Another issue that is also important at this moment is what has been happening here. In this message that's being given, shall we listen to the moment when they applauded for a change in laws over there in Europe?
Okay, applause. We have many votes to go.
An important change has been made regarding migration over there in Europe. The European Union has just started a procedure for the migrant detention and deportation plan, the toughest one so far. The European Parliament voted 389 in favor, 206 against to authorize immediate negotiations on the new return regulation. The plan would include return centers outside the European Union state detention, or they could have return centers, for example, in Africa. Also, according to the reports, detention can last up to 24 months or even longer, meaning a year in detention there. The return orders that apply throughout the Union and deportations to safe countries, even if the person has never lived there. Let's say that if a return country is, let's say, Nigeria, well, they might send a Moroccan, let's say, or someone from another country. They'll send them there to Nigeria. Maybe even up to a year detained while their case is reviewed and analyzed. And well, it's a very serious issue, isn't it? Europe would be, they say, acting quickly and decisively to send migrants back, according to this movement. In that country, in that region, in that continent, basically, a movement is happening that had been expected for some time, especially because of the crisis there, since it's a migration crisis affecting many countries, a good part of the European countries. It was always expected that something like this would happen eventually. Also, another thing that stands out is this development, yet another robot development. Let me see if I can get it here. This robot is very interesting because it has like a structure on a... It's a rectangle, something like that, but it has wheels, so it can move forward. But notice that, at least in the video, you can see it has a lot of capabilities. For example, cooking, serving a table, and let's go. The idea is for it to help out with household chores, and it has these structures. Look there, you can see it. That's the structure. And it has like half of it with some arms. And it can go down, go up, wash the clothes, turn on the washing machine, hang the clothes, not wash the bathrooms. Well, it can make you breakfast. I mean, maybe. It's not like it's super detailed, but it does have features that stand out. I mean, it does clean, sweeps, and mops. This is interesting. At least not yet. This was published by the Chinese company Unipad. It's a robot. They call it a domestic robot. This robot is already being used in real homes, and the idea is that it's a robot that can wake you up, control appliances, and organize storage spaces. It can even cook some things. They say simple things, not too complex, but it can cook an egg, maybe some toast, things like that. Well, that's part of what's being developed right now. That's honestly pretty crazy. Let's move on to another image. I want you to see this moment. There's still some doubt about what this submunition that Iran launches toward Israel or other countries actually is. Look, that truck is alone. Yes, it's alone, but one of the submunitions hits it. I want you to see what happens. The car goes flying. And besides, a crater is left in the place. I mean, it's not just anything. I mean, the explosions from the submunition. Look, you can clearly see the crater it leaves at that moment. Before that, there was no crater. Let's say the ground was normal. And after the explosion, a crater is left in the place. I'm sure they'll report it. An Iranian missile is said to have hit the city of Israel in Kafar Qasim, a residential area. Several vehicles were damaged and destroyed. Obviously, it caused fear in the area. The attack triggered air raid sirens, and the Israeli defense system tried to intercept the projectiles, but not all of them were stopped. And they had this submunition because they were cluster bombs. But beyond this, beyond the videos that have been circulating and all that, one thing that stands out is that Chinese technology is being used for the navigation of this type of missile, according to reports. Chinese satellites guide or are guiding these missiles. For example, in the case of Kafar Qasim, this attack that happened there where 5 civilians were injured and actually hospitalized, according to reports, in a missile strike zone. A navigation system called Beidou 3 was used, which guided them precisely to the point they wanted to attack. This is a dispersion system without a Chinese satellite system that is being used, and is obviously also part of this conflict. And it's something that will surely be analyzed to see to what extent countries are participating in the war. Not directly, but by providing their technologies even though they don't know what they're being used for. Another issue is also this message that has been given. Let's see if we can show it. This is a message in which Netanyahu himself confirmed the elimination of the Iranian naval chief. Let's listen.
We are forcefully attacking the targets of the Iranian terrorist regime. Last night we eliminated the commander of the Revolutionary Guard Navy. This man has a lot of blood on his hands and was also the one who led the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. This is another example of the cooperation between us and our friend the United States, with the common goal of achieving the objectives of the war.
Well, he's the person who has been eliminated. As I was saying, he is the commander of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, Commander Navash Alireza Tangrizi or Tangsiri. This person who, well, was another of the commanders who were on this list of military targets. And, well, let's move on to other important matters as well. As more images of those attacks emerge, as I mentioned, in northeastern Iran, there is a conflict that is escalating and that is not only requiring a lot of weapons, but now one of the affected parties is going to be Ukraine. The Pentagon has now declared that it is considering redirecting the military aid that was going to Ukraine toward the Middle East. According to reports, given the persistence of this conflict, they say that more attention will be given to the Middle East. According to the Washington Post, citing anonymous sources familiar with the matter, the Pentagon is reportedly considering redirecting military aid intended for Ukraine to Gulf countries or even to Iran in order to attack Iran. According to the report, the weapons being considered include interceptor defense missiles. This would be one of the points that would most affect Ukraine because it would mean having less defense for civilian areas. NATO Secretary General Marot refused to answer questions about the Pentagon's plans in the area. Marot has tried not to talk much about the subject. He stated that it was not his place to comment on that critical support. He assures essential military equipment and intelligence still reach Ukraine, including continued support from the United States, according to reports. Although we know that now France is the leading country providing intelligence and the United States is second, has that changed since Trump came in? Also, another topic that draws attention is that the Israeli army claims to have completed large-scale attacks against Iran. Another point that was mentioned a moment ago among these, thank you, that are being made. No, there hasn't been a comment in which early this morning, according to what the Telegram channel reports, the Israel Defense Forces claims that these bombings have targeted regime infrastructure. And they mention Isfahan. Again, look, that catches my attention. Isfahan would be a key point for energy and military infrastructure, and it housed uranium enrichment plants. Is this the third or fourth time Isfahan has been attacked? No. From June until now, there have been several attacks in June, and then later, well, now in this part of the conflict, there have been other strong attacks. It's not clear at this point if they've succeeded, but if they've managed to eliminate the nuclear facilities, it seems they haven't. I mean, what it says in the last report we saw 2 days ago from Rafael Grossi from the International Atomic Energy Agency to this United Nations Atomic Agency, they said that the uranium enrichment facilities apparently were still, well, operating. Let's say no, I mean, there still wasn't considerable damage in that sense, at least according to the information that the International Atomic Energy Agency has, because these facilities are still working perfectly. Apparently not. Until there is someone on the ground, troops who can really check what's going on, it's hard to know to what extent the damage to those facilities is, right? In the meantime, let's move on to other important matters. Notice that another attack was launched by the United States toward the Caribbean. This time, they killed 4 alleged traffickers who were in a boat. Intelligence information confirmed that the boat was traveling along routes known for trafficking and that it was apparently involved in illegal operations. So it was decided to open fire. 4 people reportedly lost their lives in this military action against the boat. No, I insist, over there in the Caribbean, once again, they report this attack, which they call kinetic and lethal. They claim that the boat was operating for trafficking organizations. According to what the Pentagon says, that's not the case. Another thing that also draws attention is that it's already been 82 days of Maduro in jail, detained there. Today, he had his hearing after all those days in jail before the New York court, in which the idea he brings is that he is demanding the annulment of his trial. He wants the trial to be completely annulled. And well, that's what they are doing. Donald Trump commented today that they are even going to add more charges, supposedly. But the point is that this hearing was held to demand that Judge Alvin Hellerstein annul his criminal trial for not being a narco-terrorist, for alleged violation of the 5th and 6th Amendments to the United States Constitution. This is a defense designed by attorney Barry J. Pollock, who makes a peculiar interpretation of the amendments to the Constitution to support an argument. Well, according to reports, it will be rejected by the Manhattan court. Maduro claims that he doesn't have money to pay the lawyers and that his alleged financial insolvency would affect his right to a fair trial. Supposedly not, at least that's what they want. That's the strategy they're using, he says. Venezuelan law grants Mr. Maduro and Mrs. Flores de Maduro a property right over the payment of their legal fees. The revocation of the original licenses by UFAC and the refusal to reinstate them interferes with their right to find the lawyer of their choice. Well, honestly, I don't think that's a detail that's going to have much impact. But for now, you can see Maduro there in those classic drawings they make, the illustrations they do during the hearings, well, from today, on a topic where they claim he's living in depression, right? According to this, it's like he finally realized what's happening to him. And well, that's also part of what's going on, of what they're experiencing in that sense too. Another thing that stands out is that they're waiting for a message from Abdul Malik Al-Auti. This individual you see here on the screen is from Mero. According to reports, he would be the main leader of the UTIs. That's over there in Yemen. We have to remember that this group is Shia. It's a group that is sponsored by the Iranians themselves. And it hasn't reacted very strongly. Supposedly, in a little while, maybe for the next broadcast, it will be ready. A message from him is coming. It's a message related to the conflict he's experiencing. And well, it could be that they're going to get involved in the conflict clearly now because they haven't done so yet. It could also be that it's confirmed whether the strategy of closing this strait, the Strait of Hormuz is already closed and you can see all the problems that's causing, right? Now, it could be that they close this strait as well. And that in one of those cases, well, it could affect the economy between France, between Europe and so on, right? According to reports, a speech will be given in a few moments. If it's not already happening, it's not being used, they would have received public pressure from Iran to get involved in the conflict, something they haven't wanted to do until now, which also draws attention. There's a reason they're not doing it. In the meantime, let's move on to other important matters. Well, oil keeps going up. As we can see, it's at $105. Even though Japan once again announced more reserves, the price just keeps going up. According to the reports, there are fewer reserves than they had said. Japan had said they had reserves for about a year. If it turns out that the reserves are only enough for about 30-something days, the Japanese reserves were apparently not as extensive as they had promised. They weren't enough for a year, maybe for 90 days, a little more than 90 days. And that's just the issue with Japan, right? The thing is that this is going to another level because, well, look, let's get into some details. For example, Sri Lanka has already started rationing. Sri Lanka right now is where it's hitting the hardest. Sri Lanka. Right now they have a 4-day work week and the schools are closed so they don't have to spend fuel to take the kids to school. At least in Sri Lanka, they're no longer holding in-person classes. And in Pakistan, they've also implemented a 4-day work week. That's it. They go to work for 4 days and right now there are long lines to get gasoline. India has 9 days of reserves. India, just imagine, they're looking for emergency suppliers. You see the price at $105, $110, but that's not the price they're paying. They're paying a much higher price. The price is going up in the United States. In Europe, it's already exponential there. They're paying $150 per barrel a lot because there's none. And whatever price the sellers set, that's the price they pay. So it's a separate point. It's probably problematic. Because even if you say, I'll buy it for 200, even if you pay for it, there isn't enough oil at that point. Today, we're going to bring it from the United States, okay? But they're going to sell it to you at a higher price. And the United States has already said so. We're going to limit the oil. We're going to export. We don't want to run out of oil and we don't want the price to go up internally. So we're only going to sell a little. That's all. That makes the crisis even worse. So South Korea, they have 50 days left when it comes to oil. Japan used to say they had 254 days. Now they admit they have 95 days. The United Kingdom has already issued a warning. The chief executive officer of Shell did it, not the government, but this chief executive officer. And he said the shortage in the United Kingdom will start in April. In Germany, gas prices have risen by 30%, but I think they have increased even more and the data might be outdated. I'll check to confirm this now. And it's the same in other parts of Europe, like France, etc. They're paying more. France is paying 30% more at gas stations than 8 weeks ago. South Africa claims that the situation is stable, but citizens are posting photos on social media from South Africa showing that there's no gasoline. They're just completely empty. The government says that it's stable, but the gas pumps are empty. In Turkey, the stock markets crashed. Well, Turkey, China, Japan. I mean, if we look at how the stock markets are doing, they haven't recovered, right? I mean, the drop, well, it seems stable there, but look where it comes from. The price of Nikkei is the Nikkei that has been falling up to this point. Yes, it's starting to recover lately, the Nikkei, and well, going down. South Korea as well, there it is too. Hong Kong, this is Hong Kong. It also has, well, and we can see it. That's the drop that Hong Kong has, right? Shanghai, for example, Shanghai also has a sharp drop. I mean, the point is that oil is going down, well, going up, and oil goes up and gold goes down, right? I mean, gold stays down, it doesn't follow that trend. Same with silver. Let's talk about silver here. There's the silver. And oil, well, oil is going up. Right now, we've been watching since the conflict started. This would be here. It would be the 27th, that is a day before. And then there's the weekend. And as it starts, Monday, March 2nd, that's when the rise starts, which is when the markets open. Actually, it started on the 28th, but that was a Saturday. And since then, the price hasn't stopped. That's definitely happened. These drops occur when reserves are released or when an agreement is announced. And yeah, it's like they get excited. It doesn't work. One day the markets get excited. Oh, look, that's good. There's going to be an agreement. So they start selling off that oil that's being stockpiled. And despite that, they also say, look, oil is being bought. But you say, where is that oil? I mean, where are you going to get it from? If it's already spoken for, there's a limit too. You can't just make oil appear out of nowhere. So that's another problem that's happening with this. So is this far from being resolved? And clearly the most affected are first Asia, second Europe, and then, well, it's a domino effect everywhere, right? So, well, look, while we're talking, just look at what happened with oil. We started talking, it was at 105 and even at 106. I mean, it wasn't just about to happen. It already happened. It's at $106. Well, it looks like tomorrow, Friday, it's going to go even higher. And I think that's what Iran wants too, right? I mean, Iran wants to push, wants to raise the price as much as it can from now until the weekend, because that's when they're negotiating. So you negotiate more in your favor if you can achieve that. By the way, I was telling you that Pakistan acknowledges that there is a dialogue. Let's get into the details. This is what is known about this. Look, well, Pakistan, what is it that they confirm? The foreign ministers of Islamabad stated that messages between both parties are being transmitted through diplomacy and brotherly countries. The foreign minister, Isaac Dar, confirmed today that his country is acting as an official channel for indirect talks between the United States and Iran, and that Washington has put a 15-point proposal on the table, something we had already mentioned several days ago, but only Pakistan had confirmed whether there was a real dialogue or not. Well, now they say yes. Pakistan says it remains fully committed to promoting peace. The Iranians say that out of the 15 points, only one can be negotiated. The rest simply cannot be negotiated. So it's complicated to know what's not happening there. But anyway, that's what has been agreed on. That's what is known so far. At least it's acknowledged that there is a negotiation, which is already a gain. Because before, not even that was acknowledged. No one really knew exactly what was happening. Well, that's the thing. Let's move on to other matters, topics that are also important. Look at this. This image is from Popocatépetl from Webs de Mexico, and it shows that it's having significant activity during the early morning, during the night, so be careful. Interesting, the Popocatépetl volcano there. Here in the center of the country, in central Mexico, this other image is also shown. This is something that happened over there in Ukraine, an attack that took place in Lviv, yes, an attack in Russian. Some historic buildings, this was apparently a drone attack that caused fires in buildings that are obviously historic for Ukraine. Also, this image that draws attention, let's put it up there. This is a Russian oil and gas export facility in UST Luga. Yes? See? The fires there have been burning for 2 days and they haven't been able to control them at this oil and gas facility. Yes, this is a Russian oil and gas export area that has been affected. At this moment, Russian exports are practically out of service. They have dropped by 40%, at least the exports, although there are areas where they have completely stopped. In former Russian export areas no longer active and others still exporting. On average, more or less, exports have dropped by about half, nearly half. The hardest part, he says, is the paralysis currently happening in Russia's energy sector. It's the worst disruption in history. Russia, just like that, easily. I mean, that's what has been achieved precisely because of the effect of the drones that have been used. In this case, it's from Ukraine trying to limit that country's oil capacity. Isn't that also part of what's happening in that region of the world? And well, that's true. Another topic that also draws attention is that there's a case. Just think about how things are. There's a case of an alleged member of Hezbollah who's on the United States terrorist list who was arrested. Do you know where? In Ecuador, right here in Latin America. No, I mean, this is out of the ordinary, in Ecuador. According to reports, a Syrian man was arrested, identified by the United States as a terrorist threat for belonging to the militant group Hezbollah. The arrest took place at a time when the government of Ecuadorian President Daniel Oboa, an ally of the President of the United States, is carrying out an offensive against drug trafficking gangs. Has that been going on for a while? The Minister of the Interior, John Reinberg, stated today via Twitter that the man had been arrested in a joint operation between immigration authorities and the National Police Intelligence Service of Ecuador. They say they have begun deportation proceedings against this man, identified only as M.K. No details about the person have been given. But this case also draws attention, doesn't it? He says, there are international terrorist groups that intend to operate in the country, and President Daniel Oboa's government will not allow it. The same Reinberg is said to have stated this in a Twitter post. And well, yes, a photo doesn't really show it. In this photo, their face is a bit covered, right? But anyway, you get an idea of who the person could be. No, well, I guess it's the person there, the one in green, I suppose, even though they're not handcuffed. No, so who knows, right? But that's the image they've shown there, so it's fine. Part of what you can see is, it says, this country, as some say marginal, will not allow terrorism to extend its tentacles. We will not tolerate it, says John Reinberg himself. This minister, not this Ecuador, no, well, it's also important. Another matter, isn't it already there? According to an Iranian legislator, he claims that Tehran would be charging the oil tankers, well, basically they confirm it, they would not be charging the oil tankers, approximately $2 million for passing through the Strait of Hormuz. According to reports, the connections currently being provided in this area have been thanks to the payment of approximately those $2 million. So, a blockade strategy? Tehran would threaten to turn the strategic point, right? Well, into a toll zone, yes. According to this, the measure is an attempt to recover the costs of the war, right? This was said by Congressman Aledin Urayerdi, who stated it on Iranian state television. So they're not saying that with this, they're going to recover what has been spent on the conflict, right? Or is that what they're after? At least while they have control of the Strait of Hormuz? Which, well, they're trying to stop, they're trying to put an end to it. And there have been 3,000, right now there are 3,200 stranded vessels. This is according to the former chief analyst of Seneta, a maritime analysis company, who says, well, it's impressive, isn't it? 3,200 ships just sitting there waiting to pass. Some on one side, others on the other. Some load, others transport oil or gas. Heading out, well, that's how it is. That's the situation too. Greetings also to Christy Kras. How have you been, Adrian, Gilbert? How have you been? A big hello. Let's move on to other topics. No, what happened? It's not working, Adrian, or something. He's not listening. What happened here? Greetings. Who's there? Sandra, great. Marcella, how have you been? A big greeting. Let's move on to other topics, other important matters as well. Another topic that also draws attention is that Russia, according to what Columbia Broadcasting System news reports, is providing support and intelligence to Iran in the war, the Middle East, seeking to eliminate United States soldiers. In other words, it seems that Russia's interest has been just that, to give them the connections or the information so that Iran can literally eliminate United States soldiers, he says. We see that Russia is helping Iran with information and intelligence to attack Americans, to eliminate soldiers. And Russia would also be supporting Iran with drones that could reach or attack neighboring countries. This was said by Kaja Kallas at a G7 meeting on the outskirts of Paris, the European Union's foreign affairs chief. That's a serious issue, isn't it? She says these wars are interconnected, meaning the war between Ukraine and Russia is linked to the issue with Iran. And that's why it's been said that NATO should get involved in the conflict. At the end of the day, tú tienes un interés in the Iran-Russia conflict. Well, this one also has a very clear link, which is Iran, right? Iran has been supporting Russia for the attack. So let's say from that point of view, it's more than justified, right? But, well, there's also an issue here, either of fear or of violence, and here, annoyance, specifically with Trump for not having informed them. Other than that, well, the pressure or here there's also an issue, having informed them or not having informed them, fear, violence, part of the United States, like saying you have to get involved in the conflict, right? Which, well, what Europe says is it's not ours. No, it's not our conflict. Some movements are happening, but some countries only seem to be considering action. So far, it hasn't happened. It's just been a defense plan. No, even France and the United Kingdom, which are countries that already have planes there, that already have ships in the area. No, let's move on to another important matter. Look, a report is coming out. This is a report from the Gulf states that caught my attention. I say that this sooner or later is going to happen. The Gulf states sooner or later are going to do something. They've taken their time, although there are already images, even reports that they've already been operating. But let's say that officially they haven't wanted to acknowledge it. But now they're in talks with the idea of moving forward with a more offensive plan. The Gulf demands to enter negotiations in that sense as well. That's what they say. Look, if we're among the most affected, we have to be at the table for that supposed negotiation. The Gulf Cooperation Council is also seeking to participate directly in the negotiation and, in any case, if not, to also go on the offensive. The Gulf countries believe they are the most affected by the tensions with Iran. Right now, 85% of the attacks attributed to Iran hit the infrastructure of the Gulf countries, or most of the attacks are like that. Those are, as mentioned, attacks on civilian energy and strategic facilities, and the Gulf fears an agreement between the United States and Iran. He says, the Strait of Hormuz is one of the most important oil routes, and any toll or blockade would affect global trade, the same statement says. Well, it makes sense that they are probably betting on that, betting on it. In any case, to react in that way, not to react to an ultimatum, basically that's possibly the approach that will be taken. Let's move on to other matters, other important topics as well. Another matter that also draws attention, there is an alert in the United States due to severe storms. Pay attention to this issue because warnings are already being issued for possible storms and also tornadoes. This is starting today in this area in the famous tornado corridor. The United States National Weather Service stated that the phenomenon could affect millions with hail, winds, and intense tornadoes. This then increases the concern about what might come. Starting Thursday the 26th, which is today, the phenomenon is on alert for 50 hours, let's say, in an area where 50 million people live. Where is it, you ask? From Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, Ohio, cities like Detroit, Indianapolis, Chicago, Columbus, Cleveland would be in the critical zones according to reports. No, so well, let's stay alert to this situation. It's something that will be monitored throughout this region. We'll be keeping an eye on it. But look, by this afternoon, it's already pretty clear how strong the winds are going to be. This is right now, yes. In all these areas, there are already strong wind gusts, basically throughout the central north and northeast, and heading south, even parts of the west as well. Now, I mean, it's a very large area. Supercells are expected. These types of storms are quite dangerous and capable of producing tornadoes. Giant hail up to 7.5 centimeters in diameter is also expected. In addition, destructive winds could occur, causing structural damage and power outages. The Meteorological Service advises not to let your guard down because conditions are intense. The phenomenon is due to a combination of a cold front with moisture coming from the Gulf and heat from the cold front on this side. This side from the north, heat from the Gulf area with humidity, and this creates, well, let's say the perfect storm, so to speak, right? After the storms, temperatures will sharply drop in the central part of the country and remain cold for the next few days. This event happens when those unusually high temperatures occur in several regions of the United States. At the same time in Hawaii, they're also dealing with floods again, since they've been hit by them one after another. Two storms in that area are subtropical storms that have caused floods, which they say are unusual for this time of year, right? Also, 5,500 people were evacuated in Hawaii, and at least 120 homes were affected by the floods in that region. Not just there, but around the world. As for temperatures, once again, we're seeing these combinations of cold and heat in the United States, a lot of heat also in northern Mexico and also in southeastern Mexico, which are about to start happening. Temperatures close to 37 or 38 degrees at some points, although here it shows 34 or 35 degrees, so let's hope it stays calm like that. In the northern part, there are already images circulating showing temperatures of up to 37 or 38 degrees. In some areas of Texas as well, temperatures are already being reported at around 35 degrees. Look, there it is, up to 38 degrees. Even in some areas of northwest Mexico, temperatures could reach close to 40 degrees. And well, where there's a lot of asphalt, the temperature is usually much worse than what the meteorological services report. It's not usually like that, but well, it's also part of what it is. Now, temperatures are being reported in Venezuela and also in Colombia and Venezuela, also quite hot temperatures, right? And what about the satellite report? Right now from UMESTAD, you can see how there are storms in this area of northern Peru. No, these are pretty intense storms. We'll see how it goes for them. To our Peruvian friends, we send warm greetings and we'll share more updates soon, right? Meanwhile, let's go to what's happening right now. In Japan, as I was saying, a release of reserves had been announced and now it's confirmed. Japan announced that they are going to release another part of their strategic oil reserves to mitigate the price. Just a bit, not all of the oil. Which I insist keeps going up live. We're seeing how it just keeps on rising. The spokesperson for the Japanese government, Minoru Kihara says, a transfer of crude oil is being made from half of the reserve stations of 4 refining companies. This starts today, the 26th. Today, Thursday the 26th, the transfer and release of Japanese reserves begins. Thinking obviously about lowering the price as much as possible, right? The measure from Tokyo, from Japan, is to release government reserves equivalent to 1 month's worth of fuel, while also authorizing the use of more private reserves, covering another 15 days of consumption. That's also part of what is being observed. On Wednesday, 45 ships linked to Japan remained stranded in the Persian Gulf, with 24 Japanese crew members on board, according to the Ministry of Transport. They haven't been able to leave. The president of the Japanese Shipowners Association, Hitoshi Nagasawa, requested the government to open the Strait of Hormuz. And well, they've even reached out, they've contacted the Iranians, but there hasn't been any response. It is known that about 2 or 3 Japanese oil tankers paid and managed to get out, but other than that, nothing else. Alright, let's move on to the comments. How have you been? How are you doing? Thank you so much for joining us. Greetings to Christy, to Aurelio. How have you been? Yesenia, William, how are you doing? They're over there in New Mexico, right? 75 degrees Fahrenheit, right? Huge. Hello, how have you been, Aurelio? How are things over there in New Mexico? Well, as you can see, it's taking off. It's not going away. The price of oil indeed doesn't seem like it's going to go down. It's been kind of complicated not being able to contain it. No, that's just the reality we're seeing, at least for now. And well, that's how it is. That's the situation. Let's get straight to it. I can't see. I lost the comments. Where are they? Here they are. Here they are now. Cheers. It says it's not war, it's business. Says Hall. How have you been? Greetings also to Jose Zarate, to Magico Luna. How are you? How have you been? Good afternoon from Madrid. How are you, Magico Luna? What's the word from the capital of Spain? How are things going over there? A big greeting, he says. Right now, we also read greetings to Peru. William, how have you been? Hey, since you're up north, how are things going over there? Yesenia too, very good. Greetings to Panama. How are you? He says, big greetings. Okay, let's see. I need to put the live chat here on the screen. Give me a moment. Let's see if it shows up. There it is. Awesome. There it is. It says Che. Bookly's account, second pre-publication. Give it a boost. It says, it tells Bookly, give it a boost. No, man, what for? Let's see. Don't tell me that. I'll check it right now. Let's see what it says. It says, this is the end, the very end of human rights organizations. Look at the whole case from the beginning, it says, until the end. What each of their steps intends on the part of the protection of human rights, achieved through their struggles and accomplishments. We will never listen to them. It doesn't matter, he says. It doesn't matter how much they attack us. It has nothing to do with us. They have nothing to come and tell us. Actually, we should be reporting you for what you do to women like Noelia. He says, well, I'll check it. I'll check the case. Because also, if there's one thing Bukele is known for, it's that he's very crafty when it comes to communication, right? I mean, no, you shouldn't buy everything he says. No, but yeah, I'll check it later. And if the case is good, of course, we'll talk about it. No, that's great, he says. The Spanish state just taught a girl. He says, oh, I know which case you're talking about. The case of, what's it called? Euthanasia, right? Euthanasia. I mean, the person asked to be put down or something like that. I don't know. I'll check it later. I mean, I heard something about it in passing. I'll look into it later. Thank you, Adrian, says Victor. He says, greetings to the Dominican Republic. How have you been? Greetings, Victor. Very good. Yes, I saw something. I mean, I found out because I saw reactions from several politicians in Spain. Some saying one thing, others saying another, you know. Good afternoon. How are you, Damagico? Very good. Oh, I already greeted you, right? Jose as well. Big greetings. Greetings, Edilcia. How are you? Very good. Giselle again. Greetings also. Big greetings all the way to Spain. How have you been? Noelia says, who is she, right? She's the woman. Well, sorry, as I said, may she rest in peace. Spain will do the rest, says Adrian. Hermes says, Tonio says, blessings, how have you been? Greetings from Tolua, Colombia. Greetings, very good. I'm going to check the case right now. Yes, I saw it very early, but no, I didn't see. I mean, I don't know what it's about. We'll talk about it properly later. Maestro says, if he comes, the end of the regime is coming. Taco Krasnov says, Master Shifu, how have you been, Master Shifu? What's new, huh? He says, I'll restart the missile. So, Baba, what happened? What happened? Was something failing or what? I think he says, he's tricking me. I can't see any real. Or maybe it's the missile. Let's see. Let's check if it's down. No, they're in the chaos detector. No, it should show up if it's down. Google Maps is down, that's for sure. I'm seeing it. Yeah. Instagram too. Yeah, it's down. Hey, look, here it is. Instagram. There's Instagram. Look. I mean, Instagram went down. Google Maps, while Telcel and Telma are always there. But Instagram, there it is. Look. There it is. Yeah, it did go down. I mean, if not, no, it wasn't. I mean, maybe they've already recovered. I don't know. But yeah, it was kind of weird. The internet, no. How has it been? He says it's done for. He says, Shifu, how have you been? Shifu, greetings. Very good. So how have you been? Greetings also to Luis Beltres. What's up? Yeah, well, it works for me. Okay. I haven't checked it, honestly. Right now it's working, but sometimes it works in some areas and not in others. Yeah, here it is. It comes in here. Here, Instagram loads right away. I mean, there was no problem, at least for now. No. Yeah, he says it works in Spain. Well, here too. Greetings all the way to Costa Rica. How have you been, Teresita? Very good. Greetings. Okay, I'll check that. Thanks a lot, Adrienne. Liliana says, good afternoon, Pepe. She says, what happened with the 13 Atlas that you could see its path towards March 10 or 19? No. In March, remember, Jupiter was going by. I mean, in March, it was already really far away. I mean, by March, it was already gone. It's not possible to see it anymore, especially not with the naked eye. It's already super far away. And right now, it's beyond Jupiter. It's gone. I mean, around mid-March, it passed by Jupiter, and now, well, it's much farther away. Yeah, well, that's it. It's gone. In any case, what will be interesting is the information that was obtained from Juno at Jupiter. When it passed by Jupiter, well, maybe that will be interesting. Hopefully, they'll publish it, right? That will be the thing, but... yeah, that's the topic with the 13 Atlas, which has been, well, which has continued and continued. There hasn't been a change in speed, at least no change in speed has been confirmed in that sense. So, well, it just kept moving forward, that's all, you know, later on anyway. Yes, I'll check to see if there's any other report, but basically every day I'm checking what's going on with that, and I haven't seen any. Yes, there have been other objects, you know, that are being investigated. Maybe we'll talk about that later in the next broadcast. Other objects from the same area where Atlas 13 came from, although it's not confirmed that they're interstellar. That's why the news hasn't really spread much, because that hasn't been confirmed yet. But we'll talk about that later. No, let's see what is being reported about that. No, it says, I've seen, no, I have the list and everything. I want to go to the movies this weekend, so I don't know. No, I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it yet, but yes, it's there at the top of the list. Adrian, and yeah, I'll keep checking a lot. Let's see if this weekend we go for it. It says here it is. We go for it. It says weekend. Yeah, this one. We'll be back in a little while with more information, with another update on what's happening. A big greeting. Thank you so much for being with us. In a little while, there will be another update on what's happening in the world. Big hug. Have an excellent day. Los Angeles.